Before we begin today's episode, we'd like to extend our gratitude to our sponsors at Avid for the incredible opportunity to raffle off a 1-year subscription to Media Composer as a thank you for watching. To enter, please visit postinblack.com/Avid and submit your information. The link will remain active for 1 week, and then the winner will be announced the next day via email and in an IG post on our social media. Thanks so much, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Post in Black, where we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens. We are kicking off our 6th season with a very special episode. But first, we want to thank our title sponsor, Dolby. Thank you for your support for this 6th season. Without your support, we would not be able to have this. And thank you to our supporting sponsor, Avid. Now, this episode, we're bringing back 2 heavyweights who were with us during the pandemic, and we only had them on Zoom. I could introduce them, but I'll let them introduce themselves. How are you doing, Daysha and Stephanie?
I'm good.
Yes. Tell the people who you are, where you're from. We'll jump into it right away.
I'm Daysha Broadway. I'm a picture editor. I'm from Los Angeles.
All right. Awesome.
And I'm Stephanie Filo, and I am also a picture editor.
Yeah.
And I'm originally from Sierra Leone in West Africa, and now here.
Come on. Now, we had you both on, what, in our 3rd season? 2nd season?
I think 2nd.
It was crazy.
Season,
it was a
yeah.
while ago. We had you guys on. We had to have you back in studio.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I feel like a lot has changed. You know, we just talked about it. We've had COVID when we were interviewing you. We had the strikes. Do we have the strikes? Maybe we still say that like that. And then we started 2025 with the fires. How are you both navigating that? And, you know, obviously, you were safe, but how did that, start this year for you? Were your friends affected? How did it have you? I know you're from LA.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends affected actually, and some had to, got evacuated and had to come stay with me for a few nights, maybe 4 nights, and their pets, and and I was trying to lock picture on Ricky at the same time. I had a house full of people, and I was in my office still trying to lock picture. It was really bad. Just hearing even just colleagues that you from editors who lost their homes, and then still having to go to Sundance the week 2 days, 4 days later, having to go to Sundance, having to promote their film, and still trying to navigate everything that's happening. It was just really, really horrible to see them have to go through that. Right. And we just did what we could. And, I was just piling my car full of stuff. I was running stuff to Pasadena for charities and just doing what you can, but also you just felt really helpless. Yeah. Even though you were doing what you could, it just feels like you can't help people with that part of it. If you've lost everything, it's how do I help? It's really hard. So it was tough. It was a tough start to the year for sure.
It was real. How about you? I know you were sharing a lot of resources and doing the work on that part. How was it for you?
I mean, similarly to Daysha, a lot of people within our communities have been so affected, and I've known a lot of, close friends that have either lost homes or lived in neighborhoods where all the other homes were lost. And so it's kind of just devastating to see, obviously, full communities disappearing. So many people have lost their homes, and so many communities, and years of rebuilding, and just people who've lost their neighborhoods, but their house is still standing. I think about the trauma that that must also cause. Yeah. So I think it's just been such a heavy start for all of us.
No, I agree. It's real that the word you use, trauma, traumatic. And somebody was asking me, and Daniel and I, my brother and I, we talk about it all the time. This is going on year 17 for me in LA. You can't live here that long and not know somebody who was affected. And it's a traumatic experience, even if it didn't happen to you, because people. And we know that Altadena, obviously people in the Palisades too, but Altadena being, a Black community historically, a lot of people that we know Post in Black connected with, it was just Very sad. I worked with like a after school program. We do like performances, and we did a performance in Altadena the other day for a school that got displaced, and that was my first time like being in the city after the fires. So I'm driving by, and it's like surreal. You know what happened? I was like, wait, is that a burn? And then I drove past like 3 more, and I'm like,
That's
man.
really
So they were performing. We did it at a Boys and Girls Club, and like the principal was crying afterwards because like their school is gone, kids are going, and you like it makes it real, but it's also like crazy. Like after that, I want to go do some things normal in my life and just go about your day. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy because they can't just stop. You know what I mean? So
you've been in LA 17 years.
Wild, yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. And my brother came before me.
06?
Yeah. 06. Yeah. So my brother came out here for school, and I came right after. I came for a program in like 2007, right after I graduated. Went back to the East Coast, and then came out here like 2008. So it was wild. I had a head full of hair when I got here, you know. So yeah, I have to show you the pictures. Believe me.
You know, like some people like just make sense bald.
Yeah.
Like I just thought this was always.
It was all came out the womb.
Like you just came out bald and was like your parents was like, we like it.
Yeah, we like it.
we gonna roll. We like it.
I mean, I'm grateful for it now, but man, when
it looks like it makes sense normal. To me. That's why I was like,
but yeah, that bald black man syndrome. You know what I mean? So we got it. That's
Can
hilarious.
you put like a photo of yourself with hair on this?
We're gonna put it on the screen.
Excellent.
Just a side by side.
We're gonna put my first headshot on the screen just for you guys. Yes. I think we're gonna get this episode might do some numbers.
It better.
Yeah.
Just because of that.
I was gonna say that because to your point, sorry to segue from the natural disaster.
Yeah.
No, but because I was born and raised in LA. I grew up in Compton. This is not my first traumatic citywide experience.
Right.
Like
for sure.
We've been through there was the riots, there's the floods, the Northwich quake. Like I remember a lot of things just growing up. There was like a lot of kind of life altering things and life perspective changing things that happened when I was younger. So I remember driving by burnt down houses and businesses in South Central. And so I think that like when this happened and it felt like when it was at 0% containment for a very long time. Yeah. It kind of brought me back to that. And I was like, is this just going to keep going? And am I losing my city?
Right.
Like Altadena as a Black kid living in Compton is where I wanted to be when I grew up. I was like, this is where I want to go. There's Black people there. They're so nice. It's so quiet. They can walk to the store. It's like chill. Yeah. There's mountains. There's greenery. I was like, this is where I want to be when I grow up, you know? Yeah. And now as an adult being like, oh, but like you can't get fire insurance because they're taking it away. And it just feels very like intentional and wrong. And it's just that, it's just the whole thing kind of was traumatic in a lot of ways. And I didn't even lose my home. So it's just like, I can't even imagine how that felt for people like right in the middle of it.
Yeah. That's real. And to have a authentic, you know, that realization you say about wanting to live there when you get older. We're going to jump into the editing and post in a second here. Sorry. But no. But my last thing I would say is literally, I told you guys I just moved. Yeah. I was looking at apartments in Pasadena on the edge, like for the last 6 months. And it was like kind of crazy that I was like, oh, I decided to go on this side of town. But I had literally been out there like every month, looking at places, looking at things. So it was like,
I just bought a house in Inglewood, but when I was shopping, I was in Altadena.
So Daysha, you were talking about having family stay at your house during this entire season, what happened with the fires and everything. Yeah. But you also mentioned you were working on editing Ricky. Yeah. You were still working remotely. How was it working under pressure with everything going on a film that obviously is getting a lot of acclaim, just got some awards down at Sundance as well? How was it like that? We're going to talk about how you got the project and what it's about, but how was that entire thing? Because that seems like it's a lot to do in a normal circumstance.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny because the last time when I worked on 40-Year-Old Version with Rada, we were also remote because she was in New York and I was in LA. And it was right when George Floyd was killed. And, you know, we were sequestered in our homes and trying to make this movie that was funny and joyous. And people were protesting outside my window, and I wanted to go outside. I wanted to join them. And she had the same thing going on. And it was like, we have to make this movie. And it felt like a kind of a repeat of that. It felt like I was kind of just in that mode again, where it was like, okay, with 40-year-old version, it was like, you know, me and Rada were kind of like, this is our protest. This film is our protest. We're going to give people, specifically Black people, something to laugh at, and we're going to give them joy in the midst of all of this. And then, but with Ricky, which is it's a heavy topic. Like it's really like, and there's moments in the film where I'm cutting it and having to like kind of step away from it because I feel very like affected by it. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, like I said, I felt like my city was on fire, the city I grew up in, the city I love. And I was just like, I don't know what the future is going to hold. And every now and then I was in the red flag zone, and I was like, am I going to have to evacuate? Am I going to have to grab this drive and like figure it out? Because we had gotten into Sundance, and it was like, okay, let's get it. We have to get it ready for the screening. It was a lot. It was a lot to kind of like mentally wrap your head around and figure out how to stay grounded. And having Rashad is a great collaborator, and was not sleeping.
Is the director for everybody.
The director, Rashad Frett. But also Lin Q, his co-writer. They were both in New York. Again, same situation. And but I could call them whenever and just talk about anything, or just text about anything and how we were feeling. And, you know, there was a moment where Rashad just asked me if I was okay, because he's not from LA at all. He just thought I was in a fire, like just like in the middle of it. And I was like, so I just kind of gave him like topography and was like, here's where I am. And he was seeing things and just being like, are you okay? Yeah. Are you okay? Do you need, like, everyone was kind of like, do you need to stop? Like, is everything okay? Mm-hmm. But in a way, doing something that brings me joy, it helps, you know, and I felt a responsibility to make Ricky great, so it helped me zone out. So,
I was going to ask that if it in a way helped to take your mind, like give a little reprieve in the midst of everything, because you know we were consumed, and you can't hide it. Like you're driving around, you see it left and right on the mountains and all that. So that's a really good point. Stephanie, obviously, you're working on a few projects as well. Remotely, still in the business. How has that been for you working, or have you been traveling as well, going in to play in person for work? Because we're going to talk about the projects you're working on right now too.
It's kind of varied, I feel like, during, you know, from COVID to now. So the last project I worked on, or the one I'm currently finishing, is like completely remote from my house. The one prior was hybrid, so I would be on the Disney lot for like half the time, and then at home half the time. So it kind of varies. We grown now. We cut in New York. Wow. So, you know, traveled across the country and was in office for that, even though that was 2022, I think. So we were all still masked and, you know, testing frequently. So I don't know that there's like a set way now that people have done it, but it's kind of just varies, I think, depending on the project.
Because I was going to ask you both, like, what has changed since COVID? That's when we first did our interviews, and we talked about working remotely and, you know, trying to manage all the footage, the communication aspect. A lot of that has stayed the same. But what has changed? What has stayed the same since our time with editing and post in general?
I feel like people are more comfortable with remote work now, because I know that like the discussions before would always be like, no, you have to be in an office to do this. And you're like, I promise I can do the same thing at home. So I think there's maybe more flexibility, or people kind of saw that it's something that not only like we can do from home, but I think is probably, you know, budget saving for a lot of projects as well. So I think more projects were able to be done because they were remote at times. So I've seen that a lot. But something that actually worries me is that with all of the remote work, a lot of people who are just coming in, so say post PAs or new assistant editors, don't have that face time. And I know for me, when I first made that jump from AE to editing, like people trusted me. I saw them in the office. They got to know me over time.
Right.
So I worry a little bit about people who are just coming in and trying to figure out how to like foster the same feeling.
For sure.
Do you feel that too?
Yeah, the experience isn't the same for them. I think like they just being in the room and seeing how your editor interacts with other people, even like if you're, you know, privy to that, just seeing how to like there's the technical side of what they do, which is something that they have to learn and something that we can't teach them because that's not what we do anymore, right? When we were AEs, we did, but we don't do it. We don't do that stuff anymore. The other things that they can learn from us are really things that they have to be there to see and experience. So I think I've been doing a lot of hybrid, like do the editor's cut at home and then go into the studio for the director's cut and producer's cut and bring my AE with me so that they can at least get that part of the experience.
Yeah, we're jumping around a little bit, but you touched on something just now. What is, I guess, the best way someone who's an AE can try to make that jump to editor? And obviously, if we're not getting that FaceTime or the relationships are different now, that focus, how would you encourage them to go about that, like navigating the industry as it is now? Because you like you said, you don't have really time to teach and do the same things like you needed maybe when you were going. How do you go about that
you
now?
Gotta
like
answer this.
what's the advice and wisdom? Because there's a lot of people who DM reach out. They're like, hey, I'm an AE. I want to cut. I want to edit. Like what's the trajectory? What's the relationship? How do I get in these rooms? How do I make that happen?
I feel like being proactive is huge because so much of what we do is collaborative. And sometimes like an AE or a post PA or somebody who's hoping to make that jump doesn't realize that like what we do is collaborative and what we want to do is like teach them or work together to come up with the best thing.
Right.
So I think something that I try to do is like you were saying, like bring your AE to screenings with you and like let them see what that process is like. And also just having that FaceTime with producers or with directors, they're able to like build those relationships. Because otherwise they wouldn't be able to, have that FaceTime, but also just to build a community going forward. And, in a perfect world, it's like they would come across the same, work with the same producers or same directors over time. So it's harder to foster that if they're not in the room with you.
In the room, You said that when we first talked, you were talking about how you had watched our season. You're like, hey, I didn't know a lot of these people, and now we've been very fortunate and blessed to like going into our 6th season and doing 10 to 12 episodes each time. Can you talk about the community and how it is, and then how isolating it can be as well? Because, you are at a different level, and it's like, okay, you want to work with everybody, but you may be on a project for a few months. You may be in New York or wherever. Can you talk about how you balance, the work and the network? You know what I mean? I hate that word in a way, but you know what I mean? The work and like the building, the fostering the relationships to kind of build on your next project.
Yeah. That part is really hard for me, the fostering relationships, because when I am on a project and it is a long project, I get really I throw my whole self into it. And my partner's lucky if she sees me. Like I'm very like just gone. And I think that I can be a little, forgetful when it comes to like responding to emails or text messages. And I have to like make sure that I stay on top of it. I think that's like my new thing is like just stay on top of like responding to the people who are reaching out, and then reaching out to people who like I like and want to work with and like I think are really talented. And I also get like nervous. I have like social anxiety, and I feel weird in at industry events. Like the guy who cut The Fall.
Yeah.
Anatomy of a Fall.
Anatomy of a Fall. Okay, yeah.
I went up to him at the Eddies and had no idea what to say. but I was just like, he's so good. Yeah. And that's what it was like. You are so good at this. And I don't know who you are. And I want to get to know you. But I am awkward and I don't know what to say. So like, I think that part of it has not changed like from COVID or anything. But I think we've both been very lucky to like find community within like the editing world. And there's a lot of great people.
But no, I honestly want to like applaud that, because that right there is going to help a lot of people, because it is awkward sometimes. You don't know what to say. And sometimes just going up and saying that is like authentic, it's real, and I can relate to that. Okay, well, what do you do? And let's just connect and vibe off of that, because I've looked back and I have more, I don't usually have regrets, but I've like, man, I should have just said something. You know what I mean? Because now,
you should always say
when like that's my girlfriend gets on me all the time. She's like, you talk to anybody, and I'm like, I just saw he had a hat on. He might have been from Pittsburgh. She's like, no, he's not. It's like, but why are you just talking to them? But it's just like, why not? And if they don't answer, they don't say anything, then you move on and you keep it going.
Yeah. But the DM thing is harder though.
That part, no, that's real.
That's
harder. That's
yeah.
different. Yeah. And maybe there's something to like talk about amongst the community about like how do we build and establish that and kind of get that going. But I think that authenticity of like, no, I still feel awkward sometimes when I'm talking to people too.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy for anyone.
Yeah, no.
I don't think so.
Just to like cold talk to anybody is just odd, but then
we used to be really good at it back when we like knew people's phone numbers. Like
Now something that I used to do, and I've completely fallen off the wagon with this, is I used to like set like in my calendar, I would just remind myself like way in advance, like, okay, remember to, just check in with this person or follow up with friends, because like you, I get like really sucked into whatever I'm working on and I forget. And so I just always used to try to like at least set reminders to keep in touch with people. But I need to get back on that this year.
Yeah, no, it's real. And as you know, they say life be life, and there's just a lot going on. And sometimes to manage, and then you got to protect your own space and energy at times too. You got to set the boundaries. So let's talk about the state of the industry.
Okay.
What is going on in this wild, wild world of entertainment? There have been so many changes that we saw during the pandemic. We talked about work from home, work remote, then the strikes. How affected were you both by the strike? And obviously we still see it in the post community, people, being out of work for a long time that have credits, that have talent, that have skill, have relationships. What is going on from your standpoint, your vantage point, and where do you see it going in the coming year, even as we've been affected with what's happened this year?
Well, when the strikes happened, I was on How to Die Alone.
Yeah.
And we went dark kind of abruptly. I feel like we knew it was coming, because it was like, our showrunner is a writer and an actress, and it was like she can't,
got some whispers,
she can't do what's
going on. Yeah.
If she has to go, she has to go. And so we went dark, and then I picked up a non-union gig, which I was really excited to do, not because it was non-union, but because the Daniels were producing it, and I really liked them. And Paul Rogers was involved, and I was like, I dislike these people a lot. Yeah. And if I'm out of work, I'm going to take any work, but I also really just like the project and the people involved. Right. And so I was on that for 9 months. And then, but the thing that nobody tells you is you do 9 months on a non-union show. When you are a union editor, you are losing banking hours for your health insurance. And so I had to quickly find something that was union. Or otherwise I was just not going to have health insurance anymore. And that was specifically because of the strike. Right. Because I had to pick up something else. And so like the little things like that affected everybody, even though our local wasn't striking.
Yeah.
and we didn't get any benefits of the strike. We were very much affected by it, and scrambling and trying to figure out how to make things work. And because of that, when I hopped on a union project, because I was like, I need health insurance, I was also offered Ricky, and ended up just working on two things at the same time, because I was like, I'm not going to not do Ricky.
Right.
But I also need this. So then I'm just like killing myself. I can't sleep. And, it's just like a lot. And it's all, I can directly link it back to the strikes. And, obviously when the writers and directors, when everybody went on strike, I was like, yes, do that.
Right.
And very happy for them and the success of it. But it has this effect on everybody else that I think no one was really talking about. Yeah. At least not in the media. No one was.
No, for sure.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the surface level.
Yeah. There's all these other parts to it that get affected along the way. That, for sure. I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones. Yeah. And I know a lot of people who were just completely out of work for a very long time. So yeah.
How was it for you, Stephanie, from your perspective, and what did you see or pick up on?
Yeah, for me, I think I was very lucky at the time because I had started on a project in like February or March of that year. So they had filmed like a decent amount of it by the time the strikes had started. And so we were in post. So that kind of kept us going for a while. We did go on hiatus, but it was like a shorter hiatus. Yeah. So I was just very, very happy for that because I, simultaneously had other just personal, like family things I was dealing with, and just having at least that consistency at the time was helpful for me, I think. But it was, like you said, it's like such a just daunting time. And then, once you come out of that, what's next? It's kind of just so dead out there. And there's so many, people who haven't worked in like 2 years, even before the strikes hit, there were people who hadn't worked since like the prior fall. So, I think it did, that ripple effect hit everybody, and all of these streamers were kind of merging simultaneously at the same time. And so all these shows were getting canceled. Right. That was before the strikes even hit. So it's kind of just been just a whirlwind of things. And I don't know what the future is, because that was the second part of your question.
No, I was like, it's still kind of
I mean, it feels like I think it will pick up, but it's like, when is that? And I've known multiple people who've like moved out of LA just because there's nothing, or have changed careers completely. So it's
real. We've had former guests I bumped into at various events, and they were like, "Yeah, this is what's going on with me," and I was like dumbfounded. I was like, I mean, obviously I know, like being like with your showrunner for How to Die Alone, like working in entertainment. I was doing a project, a video game voiceover, and they were like, "Yeah, you can't do that anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, right." When I first got it, this is like what, you know what I mean? And it's I can only imagine at a higher level, because it's just, for me, just working, but it was like, it's just, and not knowing what the industry holds is like, what do you tell, as we're trying to do with Post in Black? We're trying to help college age students, people maybe in high school, maybe it's just like, okay, you can work on Avid, you can learn the skill set right now that's industry standard for the future, but what do you tell them about jumping into the pool of entertainment and where to go? And
there's no water in it.
Yeah.
There's no water in the pool.
And a big part of our industry is this. Unfortunately, we don't, sometimes you don't know when your next job is going to come. The goal for me is to get to the point where I don't have to work. I don't want to work. I love my job, but I would love to be like, I'm on hiatus, and that's okay. And like, you can only do that with a safety net that I wasn't born with. So if you weren't born with it, please, you got to start building it. You got to be smart. And that's my rant of the day.
But no, it's necessary. It's real. I used to say a long time, I was like, man, I want to be a full-time actor. I want to be a full-time actor. And they were like, you are a full-time actor. A full-time actor is a part-time actor. Yeah. You don't act every single day. And I was like, huh. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh, but I was, I'm naive a little bit. And my first full year was the first strike, 2008. So I was, I'm non-union. I didn't even know. I was like, oh yeah, strike, cool. I'm sorry. Yeah. But it was like now it's obviously worse, than what it was, but it just hits differently in how it comes full circle.
Yeah. What's been inspiring though during this whole time, I think just seeing how much our like post community has come together.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
From COVID to the strikes to the fires to everything, I think people have really been like leaning into each other, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
And also for like the younger social media only generation, I think this is like the perfect time for us as like people who've been in this industry for a while to reach out and like get to know them and teach them kind of the ropes of what it actually feels like.
No, it's real. There's a lot of young. I know you guys know about Black Girls Film Camp, who obviously is blessed us, and we're shouting them out. We're going to do some work with them this year, and that's why we're wearing the swag for them. But you mentor a lot of people, and you talk about the project. Some of the questions that people ask, like, how did you get to work on that project? So we want to talk really quickly about like We Grown Now, and usually you see coming of age stories, but the focus on two young Black boys in inner city Chicago, Cabrini Green. Again, if you haven't seen it, please go see this film. Just powerful. How did you, come about getting this project? And then what about something like this speaks out to you that says, hey, I want to throw my name in the hat for this project? This, did you know it was going to be a special? Because it may not get all the critical acclaim and the, on the front cover, everything, but for those who watch, everybody I know is like, man, that's powerful.
So our director, Minhal Baig, for that film, we happened to follow each other on Twitter. That's how we met. I really liked Hala, and she really liked Black Lady Sketch Show. And we like randomly had followed each other like a ways back. And I think we've just been kind of like fans of each other. And one day she sent me like a message and said she wanted to send me the script for this film. So I was like, okay, I would love to, love to read it. I read it, was sobbing multiple times while reading it. And by the end, I was like, I have to find a way to do this, I think I was on something else at the time or about to start something else. And I was like, however I can work this out, moved to New York for it, which there's not many projects I think that I would do that for.
How long did you have to go to New York for?
I was there for like, I want to say like 6 months or so. I cut the assembly of it here in LA and then went to New York.
Wow.
And then we finished it here. So
wow.
Yeah. But I think something that drew me to that story so much is that I think I've always struggled with like, what's the idea of home? Like, what is home? What does that mean? And I've moved so much, and my family lives all the way across the world from here. And, I was just really touched by like the poetic way she was kind of approaching that, and really a place is the people is kind of the theme of the film. And so I just thought that was a really like powerful way that she was approaching it. And through the eyes of 10-year-old boys in like 1991. I would have been the same age as them at the time, not to age myself, but
for sure.
But so I just felt really touched by this story, and that's why I kind of just gravitated towards it.
Yeah. I think what's really great is obviously I know a little bit about, I've never even been to Chicago, but knowing about it, I felt like as a young Black boy, whether you're in, Philadelphia, DC, Chicago, it was like, man, that's like me and my boy. And you could just like kind of empathize. You saw yourself in it. And I was like, how did you get it so real? Can you talk about, from an editor's perspective, what maybe the most fun part of the process was for you, and then maybe the most difficult part of it? Because you said you were sobbing. So you talk about those two parts in terms of like cutting it. It's one thing to read it. Now you got the footage. What was that like?
The most fun thing about it, I think, was just collaborating with Minhal every day. Like we we approached it kind of how you would like a documentary. Like we had our cards on the wall, obviously, but every day we would come in, look at them, and we're like, what if we tried it like this? And we would shift the structure around just every single day, and to see maybe if there was a more, because it's a slice of life film, like figuring out a way to like make the boys' stories land and make their character arcs make sense. So that was just a really fun puzzle, I think, to figure out on our end. The more difficult part, we did so much sound work on this, and finding kind of what the sounds of Cabrini Green would be, because I think early on we figured out we should really just be on the boys most of the time. So I think most of the film, you're kind of just living in that kind of lower angle of just the boys listening. So it's almost like a Charlie Brown-y effect where like the teacher's talking and you're just on them. Right. So much of that was like building out the world around them. Cabrini Green was, 16 stories, multiple buildings. And so we had, on this track, this is the floor above Malik's house. The one below is Eric's floor. So like, what does that sound like? And we had pretty much throughout the film different layers of that. I think we had like 50, 60 tracks of audio by the end, and each represented a different floor or a different theme. Chicago has like cicadas at certain, parts of the year. So we had that throughout one of the acts, because we're like, okay, this is this time of year. So that I think was the more challenging part. And also identifying like, there's a police raid that happens during that. And there's also a scene where the police come in and give everyone ID cards. Right. And so finding like sound effects for that is difficult, because it's all this kind of generic, like people screaming sound effects. And so what we did was we pulled YouTube clips of actual like police videos. Wow. And so, we had that layered underneath of just like, here's what a raid sounds like, unfortunately. And so that was really like the heaviest part, I think, was just trying to make that sound work so that seeing the boys processing it made sense.
It's fire. And I know a lot of people like, they don't realize this. And as I've grown, even, in my own knowledge of post-production from my brother, and then dabbling, my own edit of little things, it's so fun to hear you talk about, because a lot of times people don't realize the editor has to know all of that. You're crafting the story. You're talking about the sound. It's not just taking the footage. It's like you have your own input into the story and drawing that. And I want to jump real quick to Daysha. Can you talk about the importance of the understanding of filmmaking as a whole as an editor? Because you're telling the story, you're crafting it, but you also are hearing everything, and like Stephanie was saying, you're piecing it together. And I love that visual of like, you have it all here, and then you're like, well, what does it look like this? And you're almost doing a cut before the cut in a way. You know what I mean? Can you talk about that? Like your understanding of how that's helped you become a better editor?
Yeah, I think whenever I read a script and I'm really, really interested in the film, I kind of know ahead of time. It's like, okay, there's the script that I'm reading, and then there's the film that they actually shoot. Yeah. And then there's the film that we're going to cut. Like everybody makes 3 films at minimum. And so I think, going into the editor's cut, always trying to respect the script and being like, okay, this was the intended film. And if it's not working for whatever reason, if pieces of it aren't working, then we'll start shuffling the cards and going, okay, like, is it stronger if we lead with this scene, or is it stronger if we lead here? Is it stronger without this scene? Let's try it without this. I remember when I Want to Dance with Somebody, there was a moment where me and Casey were suggested to take out all the musical performances. Wow. And go, okay, now what movie do you have? No. And that changed a lot of things, because I was like, oh, but the music is so fun. And it's like, that's what there was a lot of people who really just wanted the movie to be that. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted something else. Right. So it becomes like a knowledge of storytelling is probably the biggest thing when it comes to cutting a film. A lot of it, I think, we learn from watching films. I always tell people you should just watch your favorite films and watch movies you don't like too, and go, why don't I like this? What isn't working? Right. There's movies I'll watch and there's like an emotional speed bump that happens and I'm taken out. And that's most
real.
of the time it's the cut. It's and for whatever reason, who knows? Right. Maybe they had to cut away because someone was like, "Oh, we need an ADR line here." It's not always the editor's fault,
right, for sure.
You know what I mean? But it's like there's always there's something that makes you go, and you go, I really don't want to do that. I want to not have to do that, and just try to get better and better with each cut. But knowing how to tell a story effectively. It enables you to do that. Come in and with your monster, I wasn't the first editor on it. John was, but knowing how to tell a story enabled me to rearrange things and create a new ending, create a new opening, and switch the middle and reshape the scenes, because it's like, yes, we have these bones that really are good, but they can be great because I'm a storyteller and I know how to do that. And but there are so many different assets of filmmaking and editors do have to know every single one of them. I'm learning cinematography. I didn't tell you. I'm really not good at it. I don't know anything about it. But I've been like, fire. I know a lot of great cinematographers. No. Like I have a few that are friends, and I'm like asking them 1,000 questions because I'm like, there's parts of this that I don't know, and I want to really like dig into it more.
We follow all these people on the page, and I'm looking at Poster Black, and I'm like, man, I want to know how to do that. And it's like, bro, you're doing this, but I'm like, but I can still learn because it looks so cool, and I just want to know. I'm like, how do you make that shot? How do you get that?
But it's good to know. It's good to know.
Really,
when you get the footage, it's good to know why they did what they did and how you can use it.
No, you hit on something, and we're not going to keep you as much as we want to all day, but
I'm good.
Y'all
got food.
We get you something. You said about the project and the storytelling aspect of it, but something taking you out. And I really love the fact now, and knowing all of you is made going to the movies different or watching a film different, because I'm watching a show and I'm like, oh, I know them, and everybody's getting tired of me. Like, all right, bro.
Does it make it harder? Everybody. Does it make it harder? Like, do you judge all the edits on things? Do you look at something we've done and you're like,
all the edits, but I can tell the type of stories that I like to see, and I know the type of people that I like telling them. So when it's like a Daysha Broadway, when you put out something, it's like, it's you're vouching for it. Like when I see a preview for Macro, I'm serious. Like I'm like Macro, A24, not just knocking any, but like you see certain trailers and you're like, oh, so when you say you got a project coming, I'm like, let us know.
Okay.
What's it going to be? Stephanie, you working on a project? We already know, because I know the type of work that you want to do, type of stories you want to tell. And I think that's a really cool factor for an editor. It's like, you don't just, you can, obviously you need to check and you need to do this, but you don't just take on anything. It's a quality. And it,
really like to not. I think that's the goal. Is to not just have to do something for the money.
And
like I said, the strike changed things. But like, we want to be selective because we want to care about the thing you're working on.
And I'm not knocking anybody. You got to keep the lights on, do what you have to do.
Sure.
But the goal is that. We both of you have worked on a variety of projects. We talked about your monster out there right now, HBO Max. You know what I mean?
Max.
Please check it out. You know what I mean?
Or Max.
Yeah, or Max. Yeah, I should say that. Just Max. Obviously you got Ricky, we're grown now. I think Daredevil, right? Working on that, coming out. Going back real quick, Insecure, Black Lady Sketch Show. With your personalities, can you talk about working in those rooms and how that helped give you maybe the confidence or just the, the foundation to build on from there? Having a healthy work environment from the beginning gave you encouragement to go forward, because sometimes if you get the wrong, spot at the beginning, that might set you on a trajectory. You might be a little jaded. You might be rough. You might not, might want to leave it altogether. Can you talk about how those experiences working with?
Were you ever in the office for a sketch show, or were you always on Zoom?
Always remote.
Yeah.
But I still feel like it felt
you guys
like
were connected.
All in the same space. I think we just had a very active Slack channel on that.
Yeah, Slack channel was lit.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there was a point before it was probably in 2019-ish that I was honestly just like this, like I was not happy. I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. And I was like, do I just change careers? Like I was feeling really like just heavy for a while. And then sketch show came along and that like changed my perspective on so many things. Like the whole team, like I've never seen like an all women of color team, an all Black post team. We had like, all Black post team, non-binary people. Our, Black lady grip department. I've never seen that before. It felt like Wakanda for post. And I think
that's a quote.
I think, but I think also because Daysha and I came from like reality way back together as well. And I think it was just kind of like the shift of sketch show was so different. I had come off of like a different film, like an indie film that was a really kind of rough experience at the time. And just, the vast difference was so like palpable, even though we were remote, even though, we're just talking on Slack or sharing memes. So for me, I always try to find just teams, ever since then, I'm like, I just want to work with like post teams that I really like, and for sure. And it's not always going to be like an all Black post team.
Right.
That doesn't really happen, but it's like when it does, it's magical. And when you can have just a variety of voices behind the scenes, it's changes everything.
That's real.
That is a big leap actually from reality TV to a Black lady sketch show. Was like night and day. And I tell my agent this, and like, I just want to make good stuff with good people, and that's it. And like, would love for it to make me a lot of money, but if it doesn't, that's okay, because I want to enjoy the thing I'm working on, and sometimes people can ruin that, and it's great when the team is great.
And the job is hard enough as it is.
Really?
So to have a team that like is not with you is just makes it infinitely harder.
10 times harder.
Makes your days feel much longer.
What can we keep an eye out for coming, soon? I know Ricky just hit the festival, but what is the future for that? When can we see, and what can we just keep in touch for?
Ricky is in the, I don't know when this airs where it's going to be, but it's being in the process of being sold. So I don't know who's buying it. I'm not privy to that information. But I have been bugging Rashad about it, and but yeah, hopefully it'll get theatrical release. I think it has earned that, especially from the Sundance reaction. I also just finished a film called The Gates with a director called John Burr. That's for Lionsgate, and I think it won't be released until the end of the year. But that's it. I have to fly to Toronto in a couple of weeks to work on a show for a long time. And I'm gonna miss my home.
we gonna miss you too. Okay, for sure. And Stephanie, how about yourself?
So
this will air in March, by the way. This is March when it's airing. Hi guys, everybody. But this will air in March. This is March.
So if this airs in March, then Daredevil Born Again will have premiered.
Yes, it will.
It's coming out March 4th.
Yes.
Very excited. And then I also have a feature called Horse Girls coming soon. Not sure when exactly, but keep an eye out. If you like hobby horsing.
For sure.
That's a really good script.
Oh,
I read that one.
Come on.
That's the only time I've ever cried reading a script was Horse Girls.
See?
In a coffee shop. It was very cliche and stupid. I know. I was just like, I put my hat down. I was just like, it was like deep into the film, and I was like, oh, okay, this is good.
No, it's both of you, the projects that you choose, the projects that you get chosen for to work on, it just speaks to you who you are. And then I think you bring that personality and that realness. That's why we love, that's why we have fun. And obviously we're talking post, we're talking production, but just thank you for making time with us again. And, we're going to keep running it back. You guys keep working on amazing projects like you're doing. We just going to have to. But this has been amazing. I hope you enjoyed yourself. It wasn't too bad.
No, I mean, look, now that there's lighting.
Yeah.
We'll come back whenever.
Look,
thank you.
We had a double feature, everybody. We want to thank you again for tuning in to this amazing, incredible episode of Posted Black. Make sure you stay tapped in with us. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. Subscribe to the link. And don't forget to share this episode with your network. We thank you again, and we'll see you next time on Posted Black. Stay black.
See you next time on Posted Black.